So number 15, find all the real zeros of the polynomial. This is a quadratic, so it's a parabola with a vertex at 0, negative 9. And it's opening up. So we can factor it because it's difference of two squares. So set it equal to 0 because we're looking for the zeros. And factor it, x plus 3, x minus 3. So then the zeros are, for the first factor, negative 3, for the second one, positive 3. So you could just write it as plus minus 3. Those are the zeros. For number 16, first you take out any greatest common factor that it has, and this one does have a common factor, x. So then we have x to the fourth minus 16x squared plus 64. Okay? Now we're left with the quadratic structure. This is 2 times this, and this is a constant. So I'm going to treat this like a quadratic. Okay? Now factors of 64 that add up to negative 16 are negative 8 and negative 8. So this could be written as x times x squared minus 8. Now there's 2 of them, right? I could write them out like this, or I can write them like this, like that. Okay, so you set this equal to 0. So then for the first factor, x is 0. For the second one, you could, set it equal to 0 also, like this. And then so this gives you x squared equals 8. Take the square root of both sides, and so you get x equals plus or minus. Simplify it, so square root of 8 is 4 times 2. So the 4 comes out as a 2, 2 radical 2. So the zeros are 0, plus or minus 2 radical 2. Now the other factor is exactly the same, so it's going to give me the same zeros. This one's the same. So you don't have to write them twice. This is the answer. That's it. Alright, so number 17. The vertex, there was a similar one earlier. This is hk, this is x and y. Remember, f of x is another name for y, so we put negative 10 right there. We're looking for a. X is 5, h is 2, so we put minus 2 squared, and k is negative 1. So this is 3. 3 squared is 9, so it's negative 10 equals 9a minus 1. So we add 1. So negative 9 equals 9a divided by 9. So a is negative 1. Okay? So f of x equals negative, you don't have to put the 1. So x minus 2 squared minus 1. So there's the answer. Alright, so for 18, you want to write a polynomial with those zeros. So 0 and 5, so there's only 2 zeros, so it's a quadratic. So x minus 0, x minus 5, so then the x minus 0, it just becomes x. So we're distributing the x. So it's going to equal x squared minus 5x, and that's it. Right there. Okay. 19. You have 0, negative 7, and negative 3. So it's very similar. It's going to be f of x is x minus 0, x plus 7, x plus 3. So the x minus 0 is just x. So if you want, you can multiply these together first. And so that gives you x on the outside. That's this x right here. And so it's x squared plus 3x plus 7x plus 21. That's just distributive property. This is 10x. So f of x is x cubed. I'm distributing this x now to each one, plus 10x squared plus 21x. Oops, right there. So for number 20, you have 2 zeros. 1 plus radical 5 and 1 minus radical 5, those are conjugate zeros. You have the positive radical and the negative radical. And so you set it up like this. Remember, you always set up the 0, x minus the 0. So Here, same thing, x minus a 0. I put it in parentheses because it's a binomial, it's two terms. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do is distribute the negative in both. So this is going to give me x minus 1 minus radical 5. The second one is going to be x minus 1 plus radical 5, because I'm distributing the negative, so I'm multiplying like that. So now I have a 3 term by 3 term. So distributive property, so this one first, x squared minus x plus radical 5x. Then the negative 1, so negative x, I'm going to put it underneath the x. And then plus 1, so I'm going to put the plus 1 over here on the side. And then negative radical 5, I'm going to put the negative radical 5 over here. Okay? Now I'm going to distribute the negative radical 5. First with the x. So negative radical 5x. And then negative times negative is positive radical 5. And then negative radical 5 times positive radical 5 is minus 5. So we combine all our terms, so you go down the column, so this is x squared minus 2x. The radical 5x is 0. 1 minus 5 is negative 4. And then this is 0 here. So f of x equals that. So number 21, I've set it up with the zeros, okay, in order. And so what happens here, just like before, the 0, we can cancel that out. I'll just multiply these two first. So that would be x squared. The radical 5x and negative radical 5x is going to cancel out, so we're left with minus 5. So that's x to the third minus 5x. And that's the answer. So number 22 is end behavior. The leading term is negative 5x to the fourth. Because that's even, the ends go in the same direction. Negative means they go down. So this would be negative infinity and negative infinity. Number 23 is another end behavior. So you have an odd power, so that means the ends are going to go in opposite direction. When a is positive, the right goes up and the left goes down. Okay, so as the x gets smaller, that's the left side, the graph goes down, and as the x gets bigger, that's the right side, the graph goes up. So for 24, you're being asked to find the real zeros. So when I have 4 terms, first thing I check to see if it would work by factor by grouping, or the box method, same thing. I put the terms in order. So notice I'm just going in order across the polynomial, making sure that it's in standard form. So the greatest common factor in this row right here is x squared. And then you ask yourself, something times x squared gives you x cubed. And then something times x squared gives you 5x squared. That's going to be 5. And then something times x gives you negative 4x. That would be negative 4. Alright, so when you use this method, the factors are on the outside. So this is x plus 5. And this is x squared minus 4. And again, you said it's a 0, so the first 0 is negative 5. And then for this factor right here, it's plus or minus 2, because you set that equal to 0. And here's the work. You make x equals 4, square root, plus or minus 2. Or you can factor it, x plus 2, x minus 2, same answer right here.